The estranged wife of Minnesota's top prison official landed at the center of news headlines in August of 2024 when she was accused of trying to kill the former couple's disabled adult son by pouring anti-anxiety medications into his feeding bag. The incident in question took place in December of 2023 amid contentious divorce proceedings between 64-year-old Julie Myhre-Schnell and Department of Corrections Commissioner Paul Schnell. The Schnells had raised a 33-year-old wheelchair-bound victim who suffers from spina bifida and relies on a ventilator after taking him in as a foster child at 3 months old. Following her arrest, news reports revealed that Myhre-Schnell had admitted to feeding crushed up the Razapam pills to her son during a visit at his group home in Ramsey County. She even reportedly expressed regret that the victim had survived the attempt on his life after going into respiratory failure. Myhre-Schnell further implicated herself in the crime several weeks before her arrest when she sent the victim a text message stating that she had tried to make him go to sleep forever. She pleaded guilty to attempted first-degree murder in July of 2025 and was sentenced to 3 years in prison. Number 19. Torture in Texas. Police in Austin, Texas encountered a scene of unspeakable horror while responding to a 911 call about a woman who was overheard screaming for help at a local residence in late October. Responding officers found the unnamed victim handcuffed to some metal exercise equipment in the backyard, where she had reportedly spent 5 months being held captive by a group of 5 former friends who had decided they didn't like her anymore. The woman was unclothed from the waist down, and based on her injuries, it was clear that she had been restrained for a prolonged period. After initial attempts to free her from her restraints failed, emergency responders had to summon the fire department to cut through metal. 5 suspects have been arrested in connection with the case, including 51-year-old Michelle Garcia, 21-year-old Crystal Garcia, 32-year-old Mashe Khani, 30-year-old Juan Pablo Castro, and 21-year-old Maynard Lefevers. According to an affidavit, the defendants forced the victim to live outside for weeks at a time. Whenever she tried to flee, they beat her, and she was given just one small meal per day. On the day before the victim was rescued, her captors shot her with a BB gun and left her chained outside overnight while half-clothed in the near-freezing weather. Investigators described the victim as appearing severely malnourished, despite suspect Michelle Garcia's claim that she limited the woman's food intake because she thought the victim was getting chunky. Additionally, the woman's injuries, including a BB that was found lodged in her right eye, were consistent with having endured prolonged torture. The suspects are currently being held in lieu of $305,000 bail at the Travis County Jail and are each charged with aggravated kidnapping, aggravated assault, injury to the elderly or disabled, and unlawful restraint. Number 18. Herbert Swilley. In late March of 2023, a Florida handyman named Herbert Swilley announced the untimely passing of his husband of 8 years, 59-year-old Timothy Floyd Smith, on social media. Earlier that day, Marion County Sheriff's deputies had found Smith's murdered body at a home inside a senior living community in Ocala's Citrus Park neighborhood. He had been violently attacked, and Swilley seemed genuinely distraught over the unexpected tragedy. In the days following Smith's death, Swilley created a crowdfunding campaign to raise money for his deceased spouse's funeral and other expenses. The fundraiser garnered more than $2,200 in donations before the authorities announced that Swilley was considered a suspect in the case. In a statement, the Marion County Sheriff's Office said that Swilley was refusing to cooperate unless he could strike an immunity deal. Prosecutors nevertheless pursued a first-degree murder case against him, and he was found guilty following his trial in September of 2025, resulting in a mandatory life sentence without the possibility of parole. Number 17. Stephen Dean Gordon and Franc Cano. American serial killers Stephen Dean Gordon and Franc Cano killed at least 4 women in Anaheim, California in 2013 and 2014. The men were both homeless and on parole for predatory crimes when they became friends in 2009. They fell under legal scrutiny in April of 2014 following the discovery of a woman's dismembered body at a recycling center, identified as a 21-year-old escort named Jacori Nicole Estep. She had been murdered within days of arriving in the area from Oklahoma City. Estep's murder drew attention to 3 other missing women, prompting law enforcement to launch a multi-agency investigation into the cases. In the meantime, detectives traced a fingerprint on garbage that had been thrown into a dumpster with Estep's body to an auto garage where Gordon worked. During the 13-hour interrogation that ensued, Gordon confessed to killing Estep and 4 other women whose bodies were never found. Gordon and Franco were on ankle monitors at the time of the killings, making it easy for investigators to track both men to each of the 4 murders that they were ultimately charged with. In December of 2016, Gordon was found guilty on all counts and sentenced to death. The case against Cano languished in the court system until 2022, when he pleaded guilty to 4 counts of murder and was sentenced to life without parole. Number 16. Christian Kit Martin. Travelers at Muhammad Ali International Airport in Louisville, Kentucky, experienced an unusual sight on an otherwise ordinary morning in May of 2019, when 51-year-old military veteran and American Airlines pilot Christian Kit Richard Martin was removed from a plane that was awaiting takeoff for Charlotte, North Carolina. The former Air Force major was being arrested for the November 2015 triple homicide of a married couple and a 3rd male victim. Included among the victims was Martin's neighbor Calvin Phillips, who was found shot to death in his Pembroke, Kentucky home. Calvin's wife, Pamela Phillips, and the 3rd victim, Edward Dansereau, were found dead inside a burning car a few miles away. According to reports, Martin was a person of interest in the killings from the very beginning. At the time of the murders, his ex-wife was seeking help from the Phillipses and Dansereau in court as Martin faced a court-martial for abusing his former spouse and stepson. If found guilty, Martin's military career would be left in ruins, and the murder victims were prepared to provide damning testimony against him. Martin's arrest 4 years after the murders came on the heels of a grand jury indictment for murder, arson, attempted arson, burglary, and tampering with evidence. He was convicted on all counts following a jury trial in 2021 and was sentenced to 3 life terms plus 25 years. Number 15. Jacori Redding. A Florida teenager lost his life simply for bumping into a classmate in the hallway of their school on October 9th of 2025. The altercation took place at Oak Ridge High School in Sky Lake, where an argument broke out between 15-year-old Jacori Redding and 16-year-old Pinion Dalmacy. Redding refused to apologize for bumping into Dalmacy, and the young men agreed to fight at a park nearby. The confrontation ended in tragedy when Redding allegedly pulled a gun and shot Dalmacy twice before running back to their school. Dalmacy died from his injuries, and Redding was arrested in the school's cafeteria, where police found the suspected murder weapon in his backpack. He has been charged as an adult with manslaughter with a firearm and possession of a firearm on school property. Prior to his arrest, Redding had been disciplined at least 17 times for getting into physical altercations at school. He was also facing charges for resisting arrest and grand theft auto in an unrelated case. While searching the teen's phone, investigators found an outgoing text message stating his plan to pop someone after making the person believe they were going to fight. Redding remains held without bond as he awaits his next court hearing and will face up to 30 years in prison if convicted as charged. Number 14. Sharieff Massey. In what was initially described as a suspicious death, 60-year-old Alejandro Williams was found beaten in a pool of blood in his Grand Rapids, Michigan apartment in April of 2023. At the time, Williams' nephew, 45-year-old Sharieff Massey, had been staying at the residence, making him an immediate person of interest in the case. Authorities claimed that Massey was the only other person who was home when the killing took place, and they accused him of giving inconsistent stories regarding the events leading up to his uncle's death. The murder weapon was never recovered, and there were no witnesses to the crime, but prosecutors argued that Massey killed Williams in a fit of rage after discovering that an escort Williams had hired for him was biologically male. During Massey's trial for second-degree murder in September of 2025, the state claimed that the defendant had told a friend that he was going to do what I have to do to his uncle to remedy the incident. Massey adamantly maintained his innocence, and in a somewhat unexpected turn of events, the jury found him not guilty after deliberating for 4 hours. No other suspects have been charged in connection with the case. Number 13. Brayden Roupp. In mid-June of 2024, police overheard yelling from inside an Odessa, Texas home. Officers followed a trail of blood into the residence, where they found the 65-year-old wheelchair-bound homeowner, James Francis Johnson, dead from multiple gunshot wounds. Also at the scene was a teenage girl and her boyfriend, 18-year-old Brayden Roupp, who almost immediately confessed to shooting Johnson during an argument over living arrangements. Roupp and his girlfriend, Asha Vincent, had recently moved into the home when the disagreement broke out. The killing was captured on surveillance video, which showed Roupp firing multiple gunshots at Johnson as he sat in his motorized scooter, then dragging the vulnerable victim's deceased body into the house. During Roupp's trial in September of 2025, the defense argued that Roupp only meant to fire a warning shot at Johnson while refuting allegations that the defendant held the victim against his will. Roupp's attorneys accused Vincent of shooting Johnson in the neck at point-blank range, while the prosecution insisted that Roupp was responsible for Johnson's death even if he didn't fire the fatal bullet. The jury found him guilty after deliberating for just a half hour, and he was sentenced to life in prison. The case against Vincent is ongoing. Number 12. Brian McManus. Police in Warner Robins, Georgia, encountered a heartbreaking scene in late November of 2023 when they found 63-year-old Lucille Ann McManus dead in her bed with a serious head wound. Officers made the discovery while responding to a 911 call from Lucille's husband, 57-year-old Brian McManus, who claimed he had found his wife dead upon returning home from walking his dog. Brian, a British national and former London police officer who had been fired for harassing women, had married Lucille just 3 months after meeting on Tinder. He seemed strangely unemotional about Lucille's death until learning that he was a suspect, and further investigation revealed that he had married the victim for a green card. According to prosecutors, Lucille became aware of the fraud prior to her death after discovering that Brian was having an affair. She reportedly threatened to expose the sham marriage, leading to accusations that Brian killed her in order to avoid scrutiny from immigration authorities. Brian was found guilty of murder following a trial in the summer of 2023 and is serving a life sentence without the possibility of parole. Number 11. Henry David Cossette. 18-year-old Sarah Goodwin vanished while working as an escort in Houston, Texas in early February of 2022. Her disappearance was reported to the police by a friend who was monitoring her location for safety reasons due to her line of work. Goodwin's last known movements were captured on surveillance video, which showed the young woman trying to exit a client's Honda CR-V and being pulled back inside. Her friends tracked down the footage but accused police of refusing to take meaningful steps to identify the suspect. A break in the case came 3 weeks later when a 27-year-old man named Henry David Cossette set his apartment on fire. Cossette told emergency responders that he had killed a woman and provided law enforcement with the location of the remains, where they found garbage bags containing Goodwin's dismembered body parts. An autopsy found that Goodwin had been strangled to death, and Cossette was charged accordingly with her murder. During a 2-day bench trial in April of 2024, the prosecution argued that Cossette's ordinary and unassuming demeanor likely caused the victim to let her guard down when she got into his vehicle. The defendant was found guilty and sentenced to 45 years in prison. Number 10. Cheyenne Maddox. While responding to a filthy and trash-covered Clarksville, Tennessee home in early July of 2022, emergency responders discovered the body of a wheelchair-bound teenage boy among the disarray. Cheyenne Maddox had died from malnutrition despite previous repeated calls to Child Protective Services from multiple people who had become concerned for his well-being. Cheyenne's mother, Cheyenne Maddox, was initially charged with 5 counts of child abuse and neglect due to the deplorable condition of the home. Several months after the boy's death, she was indicted on upgraded charges of first-degree murder and aggravated child neglect. Cheyenne denied killing her son, while prosecutors argued that she was responsible for the lack of care that led to Cheyenne's death. In late October of 2025, a jury found her guilty of aggravated child abuse and reckless homicide. She's currently awaiting sentencing, which is scheduled for January of 2026, and is facing a 2 to 4 year sentence for the homicide charge, while the aggravated abuse charge carries a 15 to 25 year term. Number 9. Watson Morgan. When 49-year-old Sergeant Watson Morgan failed to show for his scheduled shift with the Bronxville, New York Police Department in late December of 2023, his colleagues became concerned for his well-being and called for a welfare check at his Clarksville home. Inside the residence, officers found Morgan, his 42-year-old wife, Ornella, and the couple's 2 young sons, Gabriel and Liam, dead from gunshot wounds to the head. The house was neat, orderly, and devoid of any signs of forced entry. Evidence indicated that Morgan had been shot at an extremely close range, leading to the conclusion that he had methodically killed his own family before turning his inner turmoil on himself. In a report detailing the findings of its investigation, the New York Attorney General's office noted that there were no drugs or alcohol in Morgan's system at the time of the murders. With no evidence to indicate that anyone else was involved, authorities ruled that Morgan was solely responsible for the victim's death, and the case was closed. Number 8. Patricia Ann Santos-Duvalier. In mid-March of 2023, a Missouri caregiver showed up at an Ozark County emergency room with a severely mentally disabled woman claiming that their client had fallen. The woman succumbed to her injuries, which included a broken nose, extensive bruising, and other signs of severe abuse. Staff members suspected that there was more to the story after recalling that during a previous hospital visit, the 37-year-old patient had said, "Help me," multiple times despite being almost completely non-verbal. Suspicion quickly fell on 59-year-old Patricia Ann Santos-Duvalier, who worked as a living caretaker for the woman and her bedridden mother. Detectives paid a visit to the victim's home, where they found the deceased woman's mother lying in a urine-soaked, cockroach-infested bed. The entire residence was deplorable, with evidence indicating that the younger victim had been locked in her room for prolonged periods, forcing her to relieve herself on the floor. Santos-Duvalier denied harming the victims but was charged with murder and assault. While out on bail the following year, she was charged with 28 additional counts for allegedly stealing firearms and other valuables from the victim's home. Records show that she's currently awaiting trial from behind bars at the Ozark County Jail. Number 7. Erick Gainer. Just hours after turning himself in for a 90-day DUI sentence in late October, 41-year-old Erick Anthony Gainer was beaten to death by his cellmate at a prison in Cumberland County, Pennsylvania. He was found badly beaten with a swollen brain after a fellow inmate overheard him screaming for help and alerted staff members, but by the time help arrived, it was too late to save his life. Gainer's 3-month punishment stemmed from a drunk driving crash that took place last November, when he lost control of his car and veered down an embankment while intoxicated behind the wheel. His girlfriend, Tessa Sharieff, told news outlet WHB that she had reassured Gainer that he was going to a jail with a safe reputation and that he had nothing to worry about. But her prediction proves to be tragically incorrect the morning after Gainer was booked into custody when 33-year-old D'Angelo Nowlin attacked him in his sleep. According to reports, Nowlin tossed Gainer from the top bunk onto the floor in an unprovoked fashion, then proceeded to kick and punch him to death. Authorities have declined to specify an alleged motive, citing the ongoing nature of the investigation, and Nowlin has been charged with criminal homicide. Number 6. Pierre Haobsh. In mid-March of 2016, 57-year-old Dr. Wee Dong Henry Han, his wife, 29-year-old Hui Ji Jenny Yu, and the couple's young daughter, Emily Han, were found murdered in the garage of their Santa Barbara, California home. They had each been shot in the head and were wrapped in plastic and duct tape when their remains were discovered. Just a day and a half later, police zeroed in on a 36-year-old career conman and a business associate of Han's, named Pierre Haobsh, as their prime suspect. Haobsh had been seen visiting Dr. Han's clinic at least twice earlier that week, and authorities believed he was motivated by financial gain. He had lied to Han about being financially successful when in reality he was anything but. Haobsh denied any involvement in the triple homicide, claiming he had been framed. He was nevertheless charged in connection with the case and was found guilty of all 3 murders and a gun enhancement following a trial in 2021. The judge sentenced him to 3 consecutive life terms for the murders plus 75 years for the gun enhancement. To this day, Haobsh has never taken responsibility for his crimes. He even tried to get his case overturned, but his appeal was denied, and he remains behind bars at Kern Valley State Prison, where he will likely spend the rest of his days. Number 5. Stephen Hobbs. 51-year-old serial killer Stephen Hobbs held the not-so-flattering distinction of being one of the longest-serving inmates at the Harris County Jail in Texas, where he spent 11 years in pre-trial detention for the murders of 2 women. Sarah Sanford and Patricia Pyatt were killed in 2002 and 2010, and Hobbs flew under the radar until 2011 when he was linked to the assaults of multiple escorts through DNA evidence. Further investigation connected him to the murders of Sanford and Pyatt, and authorities believe Hobbs likely killed additional victims whose cases have not been solved. The case dragged through the court system for years due to various delays caused by the COVID pandemic, the need for reliable witnesses, and prosecutors' decisions over whether or not to seek the death penalty. Harris County District Attorney Kim Ogg ultimately decided against pursuing capital punishment, and Hobbs was just days away from his scheduled trial in 2022 when he pleaded guilty as charged. He received an automatic life sentence for his crimes but could live to see freedom again if he survives past his parole eligibility date, at which point he'll be over 100 years old. Hobbs remains a suspect in at least 1 other murder but has never faced additional charges, and his true number of victims may never be known. Number 4. Tahreem Rana. After falling on hard times, 46-year-old Venetia Woodard found herself living at a motel in Hapeville, Georgia, and selling her body to survive. She failed to return after leaving to meet a client one morning in August of 2014 and was found dead and burning in a city dump later that day. Woodward had been shot twice in the head, and phone records show that she had last spoken with a 25-year-old Atlanta police officer named Tahreem Rana. During questioning, Rana admitted that he had exchanged text messages with Woodward while seeking the types of services that she offered, but he claimed they had never met up and denied any involvement in her death. But law enforcement remained suspicious, and further investigation turned up additional evidence linking Rana to the crime, including his GPS history and the discovery of the suspected murder weapon. Realizing that the police were onto him, Rana tried fleeing to Mexico, but he was arrested before he could catch his flight. He testified in his own defense during his trial, claiming that Woodward had tried carjacking him and that he had acted in self-defense. But the jury didn't buy his story, and he was found guilty of murder, felony murder, tampering with evidence, concealing the death of another, aggravated assault with a deadly weapon, and more, resulted in a lifelong prison sentence without the possibility of parole. Number 3. Daniel Watson. In what was later described as a multi-county killing spree, an Alabama man was accused of murdering 4 people in less than 1 day in March of 2023. The first 2 homicides took place in St. Clair County, where 37-year-old Amber Manning and 62-year-old Timothy Davidson were shot to death at a residential property. By the time investigators caught up with the suspect, Daniel Watson, he was already in custody for the murders of 40-year-olds Tiffany Michelle Hernandez and Jason Joseph Brown, who was shot to death in Birmingham just hours after the first 2 victims were killed. Watson reportedly confessed to killing Hernandez and Brown and was charged with all 4 murders. Following a trial in September of this year, he was found guilty of capital murder for the deaths of Brown and Hernandez. The jury voted 11-1 in favor of the death penalty, which means that Watson is now on death row. He also still faces charges for the murders of Manning and Davidson and is scheduled to go to trial in early March of 2026. Number 2. The murder of Reggie Brown. Boredom led a group of 5 teenage girls to commit the unthinkable in Washington, D.C. in October of 2023, when they decided it would be a good idea to viciously stomp, beat, and kick a disabled stranger to death. Ranging in age from 12 to 15 years old, the girls chased the vulnerable victim, 64-year-old Reggie Brown, into an alleyway and fatally bludgeoned him while stopping long enough to take selfies and video recordings of the deadly assault. At one point, the girls could be heard making fun of Brown because he was bleeding. Even more disturbingly, the group cheered after realizing the victim was dead. When questioned in court about what motivated the group to commit the crime, one of the defendants said that they were bored. 2 of the girls received a maximum allowable sentence for a juvenile offender, but due to their ages at the time of Brown's murder, all 5 perpetrators will see freedom again during their early adulthoods. The oldest girl among the accused was convicted of assault with a dangerous weapon and sentenced to 3 years in prison. The other defendants were ordered to serve time until the age of 21, while the 5th suspect was sentenced to the custody or rehabilitation facility until she turns 18. Number 1. Christina Cowens. 59-year-old Richard McClintic suffered from cerebral palsy, so when he suddenly vanished in October, his family immediately suspected that something had gone terribly wrong. They paid a visit to his home and spoke to his caregiver, 41-year-old Christina Leona Cowens, who allegedly refused to let McClintic's loved ones inside, thereby furthering the family's suspicions of foul play. Police attempted to perform a welfare check at McClintic's Sacramento apartment, but he wasn't at home. His whereabouts remained a mystery until nearly 2 weeks later, when law enforcement discovered his body after obtaining a warrant and performing a more thorough search of the residence. Authorities have released limited details about the case and have yet to publish a photo of Cowens, who has been charged with murder, making fraudulent claims to an officer, unlawful disposal of human remains, grand theft, and attempt to conceal a death. She remains held without bond at the Sacramento County Jail as she awaits her next court hearing. Thanks for watching. Hypothetical question today. If pushing a button frees one innocent death row inmate, but in consequence releases 4 convicted murderers, would you push the button? Why or why not?